You have felt it, the headache that arrives behind the eyes, the tooth that turns every heartbeat into a small explosion, the back that locks up and will not let you stand. And when it comes, you reach for a little white pill, swallow it without a thought, and wait for the world to go quiet again. Most people assume that before that pill, before medicine, pain was simply endured, that ancient humans just suffered in silence until it passed or it killed them. That is not what the evidence shows. What ancient humans did about pain was inventive and desperate and far stranger than the silence we imagine. And the most powerful thing they found was not a plant or a drug or a blade. It was each other. Start with the body, because pain is not the enemy it feels like. Pain is an alarm. Across your skin and deep in your organs sit millions of tiny sensors called nociceptors, and their only job is to scream when something is wrong. A burn, a break, a rot in a tooth. The signal races up the nerves to the brain, and the brain turns it into the one feeling you cannot ignore. That is the entire point of it. Pain is evolution forcing you to stop and protect the wound and never do that again. The trouble is that the alarm has no off switch. An ancient human felt every bit of the agony you would feel, with the same nervous system, the same raw nerves. They simply had no pharmacy to answer it, so they answered it with the world they had. Start with a tree. For thousands of years, across cultures that never met, people in pain were told the same strange thing. Chew the bark of the willow. Boil its leaves and drink them. The Sumerians pressed it into clay. An Egyptian medical scroll called the Ebers Papyrus, written around 1550 BCE, lists willow for aches and for swelling. The Greek physician Hippocrates handed it to women in the pain of childbirth. None of them knew why it worked. The why stayed hidden until 1828, when a chemist in Munich named Johann Buchner pulled a bitter white compound out of willow bark and called it salicin. Salicin is, almost exactly, the thing inside the pill in your cabinet right now. The willow had been making a crude aspirin the whole time, and for 5,000 years people swallowed it without a single name for what they were doing. They did not have the molecule. They had the tree and the long memory that the tree worked. Then there is the flower that did something the willow could not. The willow quiets the alarm near its source. The poppy travels to the brain and changes who is listening. Somewhere in the late Stone Age, humans learned that the opium poppy, scored and dried, gave up a substance that did not just dull pain, but lifted a person clean out of it. Poppy capsules turn up at farming villages across Neolithic Europe, planted on purpose, buried with the dead. The Sumerians had a name for it. They called it the joy plant. We know now that opium slots into the brain's own opioid receptors, the locks your body keeps for the painkillers it makes itself, and floods them. It was the first true escape from pain. It was also, almost certainly, the first addiction. But notice what all of this has in common. The willow, the poppy, the cures still to come. Every one of them is a substance, a thing you put into the body to shout the alarm down. Hold that thought. Because the strongest answer ancient humans ever found was not a substance at all, and it is the one that almost left no trace. Between the poppy and the knife sat another shelf of the ancient cabinet. The plants that did not kill pain so much as switch the mind off while it happened. Henbane, mandrake, thornapple. Plants heavy with compounds that blur thought and drop a person into a fog deep enough to be cut without fighting back. They are poisons, a hair's width from lethal in the wrong dose, and ancient healers learned exactly where that hair's width was by watching people die on the wrong side of it. This was the first anesthesia. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of the person, sent somewhere else while the body was opened, because the body was opened. Start with a hole in a skull. On every inhabited continent, archaeologists keep turning up ancient skulls with neat openings cut into them, scraped or drilled or bored clean through the living bone. It is called trepanation, and it is at least 7,000 years old. A person was held down, awake or barely sedated, while someone opened their head. Here is the part that stops you cold. Many of those skulls show healing. The bone grew back around the hole, smooth and rounded, which means the patient lived, sometimes for years afterward. John Verano, an anthropologist at Tulane University, studied hundreds of trepan skulls in Peru and found survival rates that climbed over the centuries to as high as 80%, better than battlefield brain surgery in the 1800s. Why would anyone do this? Most likely to release the pressure of a crushed skull, or to chase out the headaches and seizures they had no other way to explain. It is the most desperate answer to pain we have ever dug up. And it worked often enough that they kept doing it. But here's the part that should bother you. Every one of those answers treats pain as a thing to be silenced, a bark to dull it, a flower to flee it, a blade to let it out. And every one of them leaves a trace, a chemical or a scar in bone, which is the only reason we know it ever happened. The strongest painkiller ancient humans ever had left almost no trace at all. We know about it because of a single skeleton. In a cave called Shanidar in the mountains of northern Iraq, researchers found the bones of a Neanderthal man who lived around 45,000 years ago. They called him Shanidar I. His skeleton is a catalog of disaster. A massive blow to the left side of his face had likely blinded one eye. His right arm was withered and useless, gone below the elbow. He had a deformed leg and bony growths deep in both ear canals that would have left him nearly deaf. Any one of those, in a world of hunting and cold and predators, should have killed him quickly. He lived into his 40s. Erik Trinkaus, the anthropologist at Washington University in St. Louis who studied his bones, drew the only conclusion they allow. A one-armed, half-blind, half-deaf man cannot hunt, cannot forage, cannot defend himself. Someone fed him. Someone kept him warm and kept him close, for years. And that is not a small thing. To carry a man who could not hunt through scarce winters, his group had to share food they needed, slow their pace when they moved, and decide over and over that his life was worth the cost. Shanidar I is one of the oldest hard proofs we have of compassion. Not as a feeling, but as something a group of humans did with their hands, day after day, for someone who could give them almost nothing back. His pain was not treated with a plant or a blade. It was treated by never being left alone with it. So put it together. The willow that hid an aspirin in its bark. The poppy the Sumerians called joy. The fog of henbane and the hole bored in a living skull. And a band of Neanderthals carrying a broken man through decades he had no business surviving. The first pharmacy was a forest. The first surgery was a horror that somehow worked. But the first medicine, and the one that never stopped working, was each other. And maybe that is the half we have quietly forgotten. The pill in your hand is a miracle. It finds the nerve and quiets it in 20 minutes flat, but it does nothing for the other half of pain. The dread of it, the loneliness of lying awake inside it. That half does not live in the nerve. It lives in whether someone is sitting beside you. Ancient humans never isolated a molecule. They understood that last part better than we do. The willow eased the body, each other eased the rest.